Okay, let's get started. I want to be a good steward of our time. Okay, we're calling the meeting to order at 2:42. And it would like George, Councilman Brannigan, to say the pledge. Everyone stand, please.
It's outside the window. Y'all join in, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so all of the charter committee members are here, Councilman Brannigan and Councilman Suger and me, Councilwoman McKinney. If you have any cell phones, pagers, beepers, do they even make beepers anymore, or other devices of this nature, please deactivate them and silence them throughout the meeting. We have no old business, so let's just get right into the new business. The first discussion item that I want to highlight is to focus on the current City Hall conditions, and that's specifically focusing on the City Hall complex of building A, B, and C.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you today and to the public. There's a number of documents available on your Dropbox, that are going to be illustrative of some of the things you're going to hear today. The document in front of you is the PowerPoint presentation presented by Joe Calderera. I want to say we were a couple of months into recovery at that point. He'd assessed all the buildings, and he had made the initial assessment that resulted in our initial report to FEMA and the insurance company of the element of damage. Since that time, we have had quite a number of engineers, architects, adjusting experts, a variety of other personnel who have gone to these buildings, and what you have in your Dropbox are a number of zip files that contain all the data that we have. What we have, just to remind everyone, August 29, your birthday as I recall, we had a Hurricane Ida came through and caused substantial damage, rendering A, B, and the top 3 floors of C at the City Hall complex unoccupiable. We have been working through a public adjuster who was introduced to us by Councilman Impastato, and he was really a godsend. And now we have lawyers who also have access to their own adjusters who are putting the finishing touches on our claims. Today, what we'd like to do for the purpose of the scope of the damage is really to have Mr. Rico Alvendia, the attorney who is supervising all of the claims, to come up and talk to us about the current status of our negotiations. I think that leads to the extent that the insurance companies have proclaimed these buildings as total losses. I think that goes partly to the element of damage associated. That being said, there will be an executive session on the 20th, at which point further details can be provided to you, including some attorney-client privilege negotiations pertaining to the insurance and FEMA. We have pretty much provided at council meetings the update regarding where we are with the FEMA claims. Ms. Herring is here in the event there are questions about that, but largely what I believe our task is today is to give you as much information as possible about the condition of the buildings and where we are in terms of decisions that you need to make or advice that you need to provide to us and the new administration on how to move forward. So with that, in terms of the discussion of the current City Hall conditions, and that's buildings A, B, and C, I would ask that Mr. Rico Alvendia come to the mic, and C will also have Mr. Sherman addressing it because C was hit by both Hurricane Zeta and Hurricane Ida.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Council member McKinney was not able to greet you as you came in, but hello. I hope you're having a good afternoon. One of the most knowledgeable people about the condition of these buildings is Mr. Glorioso right over there, and that gentleman standing next to him, who I've had the pleasure of touring these buildings on multiple occasions now together with our adjusters. We are working, by the way, just to be clear, we're still working with Jansen, who was initially brought on by Dominic Impastato. And The one thing I want to point out at the outset, which is very important when it comes to your insurance claim, is this. Your insurance company is just about agreeing on all 3 buildings being a total loss. That's important. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but that's where we're trying to bring them. I could tell you Building B, there's just about an agreement on the policy limits have been reached on that building. Building C is a little bit more of a puzzle because it got hit by both Zeta and Ida. But here's the thing, it's the same insurance company. So whether you get the total policy limits under Zeta or Ida event, we believe the insurance company is agreeing with that, and Matt is going to touch on Building C as well. Building A is your courthouse building, which that one we're doing a little bit more work. The insurance company is coming back actually on the 10th and the 11th of next week, 10th and 11th of next week, to do a field walkthrough on several buildings, including the Pontchartrain Center and the City Hall complex. That meeting has one goal, to narrow the differential between what we say is our damages and what they say are damages. No big secret on this, and Councilman McKinney asked me last night, what's our total damages? You have 60 buildings. That total number, as I told you, we're getting our arms around that within a couple of weeks, and certainly by the executive session, we hope to have a much closer number on total damages. But I can tell you with confidence, the 3 buildings, A, B, and C, that our goal is to get policy limits on all 3 of those. So whether we repair, rebuild, whatever decision this council makes and the city makes, what's important to remember is whatever side you're on for that decision-making process, it's important to know that we should all be saying, look, let's get the final numbers from our adjusters here and see if it's total policy limits, okay? One more piece I'll tell you. We even flew, and remember I told you when I came on, I wanted to verify the adjustments that have been done by Jansen. They did a great job. But we also talked about last night, as time goes on, you see new damages, right? You start seeing things leaking. My living room's leaking now. I didn't realize that. That's what I'm in the process of doing. We actually flew in an expert by the name of Paul Beers. Paul Beers is a national building envelope expert. One of your incoming councilmen should know his name very well, Joe Lahat. This is a consultant, and there are other consultants like him that come and look at the integrity of the windows, the other parts of the envelope of the building. A lot of windows at the Pontchartrain Center, a lot of buildings in Building A. Again, that's how we're hoping to close that gap. Paul Beers and his team have been out at City Hall complex enhancing that report that was completed by Jansen to see what new damages are there. So even that report that you're getting right now, that was done by Mr. Calderera, that's being updated right now. We have people in Kenner, in the field this past week at the convention center, enhancing those reports. So, you know, I'm not, as the attorney here, I'm hired to come in and get as much as I can for you under your policy limits. The decision whether to repair or build, that's a little bit out of my lane, but I can tell you, looking at not just this report you have, but multiple updates, including what they're seeing right now, each building we're looking at policy limits demand that we're going to make on the insurance company. Yes, sir. Councilman?
Do you know the policy limits for each building?
I do.
What are they?
Okay, for Building A, you have about 3.2 million for structure. You have 439,000 for contents.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
439.
3.2 million in structure, about $439,000 in contents. So you're looking at about 3.7 million coverage.
And that's just for Building A?
That's just Building A.
Okay.
What about B?
Building B, you have policy limits, 2.9 million. Structure, contents is about 350,000. In Building C, we have 4.2 million with contents limits of 500,000. Now, I will tell you there are other coverages within here that will increase that. Code compliance and so forth. But that's some of the raw numbers we have. So as you look at those three buildings, the estimates that were initially written, y'all ready to write down some more numbers? Okay, on Building A, and these numbers have grown, okay? I'm telling you, because I have people in the field, these numbers are static. I mean, they're moving, okay, upward. Initially, you had about a 2.9 million in repair estimates for Building A, with about $900,000 in mitigation. Mitigation for Building B, repair estimates initially were 3.7 million.
And that's for Building A or Building B?
Building B, I'm sorry, and then mitigation 670. Now, the key thing about these numbers are, these were early on, Councilman McKinney. These were initial numbers. I will tell you, a lot of numbers have been added to that, because as these gentlemen continue to walk around, they see leaks, waters, windows are now fogging up, windows are leaking. These numbers are going to be increased significantly by the envelope problems they're having, windows, ceiling, so forth. Code enforcement. I haven't even talked about that yet. We had your code enforcement division from Kenner to come out there, because if any building is damaged more than 50%, you have to upgrade with codes. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars more that we believe in Building A are forthcoming, together with Building B. But they're already, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What are the repair numbers for B and C?
Repair, we had 3.8 million, and that was initial. I gotta stress that, and that's why, if anybody from the insurance company is here in the audience, those are initial numbers. The final number, Councilman, will be significantly higher, we believe, because of additional damages that have been found since this initial estimates.
So Building A repair is 2.9, Building B is 3.2,
That's correct.
and then Building C
No,
is...
Building B was 3.7.
And then Building C...
Building C, I'm going to let Matt address that, Matt Sherman, because again, the damage estimates we have right now are pointing to both Zeta and Ida.
Okay.
And I think that it's probably best to have Mr. Sherman talk about that, because they overlap with each other.
What about the mitigation costs for B?
For B, mitigation cost estimate was about $700,000. Now, this is what I'd like to do in executive session with you, is, as I'm saying in public right now, these were initial estimates. I hope to have the more update, verified, enhanced reports to report to the City Council in executive session on the 20th. Okay, so please understand these numbers, very initial, very rough draft, but we're working on them right now.
Okay, and I guess for clarification, so these are all in repairs, like these are like these include obviously all structural, any structural integrity.
That's correct.
All of those items.
That's correct.
Council members, for Building C, Mr. Albandia and his firm are handling the Ida claims. Regarding the Zeta claims, Mr. Impostado, Councilmember Impostado, when he initially had the case, he had a report generated, testing done, and his numbers were 5.3 million for Building C regarding Zeta. And so, again, that's about 1.2 million above policy limits for Building C regarding Zeta. And as I said last night, because Zeta happened about a year before Ida, we are further along. We had to file a lawsuit. Mr. Impostado filed a lawsuit. We've taken that over, and we're actually communicating with Boys of London attorneys to try to get a mediation scheduled. And I'll report back to you all as soon as we hear back. But Building C for Zeta, Mr. Caldera estimated that the grand total summary to repair, replace, whatever you all decide to do for Building C was about 5.3 million. And like Mr. Albandia said, that's the same insurance policy for Ida. So you got 4.2 million and 500 in limits.
Is there any belief that there was additional damage from Ida not done by Zeta?
Yes, and that's why we are here together, joined at the hip, at least as it relates to Building C. We are working, experts, attorneys, everybody's working together on Building C.
So do you have any rough number on the Ida damage to Building C?
I do not right now. That's part of what we're trying to unravel right now. But the important takeaway from Building C is this. Everybody agrees the significant amount of damage is, it's the same insurance company. So whether they pay under Zeta or Ida, yeah, so,
This goes to us to determine rebuild or build.
correct, okay. We hope, both of us hope to have much more specifics in the next couple of weeks. But again, I just want to stress to everybody here present, the numbers that I put out earlier, preliminary, they are not near final. What we're going to present to your insurance company as estimates.
Was there any mediation for Building C?
That's what we're working on now. Philip Rue is the attorney, he's a local attorney for Lloyd's of London. He actually reached out to me to see if we were interested in mediating, which of course we said yes. So because it's Lloyd's, he's got to go to the quote-unquote market and get approval from the different underwriters of the policy. But he believes that they will want to mediate, because if not, you have to arbitrate. The judge has found that the policy has an arbitration provision, and you have to go to New York to arbitrate. So it's definitely in Kenner's best interest to mediate instead of having to pay for it.
So wait, the word difference, the mediation is settling on the dollars before you go to trial. I was talking about you got mitigation damage for repair to get it just sealed up after a storm. Is that what you would give us these $900,000?
Yes.
Do we have enough, was Building C needed to do any initial work to seal it back up because of either storm?
Building C,
Yeah.
yeah, the 5.3 is the total amount. That's that.
So that includes mitigation?
Right.
That includes-
That's everything.
Yep.
That's why I just want to make sure we settle.
I thought you said mediation, not
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
It's
yes,
not hard.
mediation.
I think maybe he meant remediation, which is.
All right, yeah. But that's the answer to your mediation question. We are trying to.
In both Ida and Zeta claims, we're going to hopefully mediate those before we have to go to trial on the cases.
Go down,
No, that's not what the mitigation was the initial getting here, seal it, dry it, move on. So the 5.3 covered that. seal.
Yes, and by the way, in addition to just, I think it's important on the 20th, we're going to have the executive session discussion. We will bring our lead adjusters, who includes Jansen, Luis Estevez, who was initially hired by Dominic Impastato, together with these additional experts we're talking about, Mr. Beers as well. We're going to have them there on the 20th to really give you the nuts and bolts, okay, from the experts' mouths themselves.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I think at this point, that's all you want to give us, is just these rough dollars of insurance value, cost to potentially repair or build new, but they're exceeding the insurance value pretty close for each building, so that's just another discussion.
Sure.
Okay, so before you guys step away, is there any member of the public that has any specific questions on the information that's been shared? If you'd like to step up. If you state your name and district. Social security number, no.
Hello, Stacy Alessandro, District 4. Thank you for putting on this presentation. I do have a couple of questions for the the gentleman here from the insurance company.
He's the attorney representing us against the insurance.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I knew. I just said it wrong, but thank you for clarifying. Right. So can you tell me, please, how are you guys getting paid? What is the fee structure? Are we paying y'all by the hour or a percentage of our recovery?
Stacy, if you can ask all your questions and then we'll, instead of, yes, yeah.
Okay, well, I have a few, so I don't know if you can remember. Okay, so number one, I'd like to know how you guys are being paid. Is it by hourly or percentage of the recovery? And if it is a percentage, is it a percentage of the total claim? And then I guess my other questions are, I guess this is more along the lines to you guys. Why did we even bring a company on, an attorney on in the first place at this point? Because I know normally, you get your initial estimate from the insurance company of what they're willing to pay, and that amount is undisputed, and they pay you that, and then you go back and negotiate some more, and they pay you that, and then if you can't resolve it, then we could get somebody to come in. No offense to you guys, but I'm looking out for Kenner. And it seems like, okay, building A, our policy limit is $3.2 million, and the damages plus the mitigation already exceeded that. Like building B, we have $2.9 million of coverage, but our damage is 3.7 with another 700,000 in mitigation. It seems, and then, okay, let's do building C. 4.2 million of coverage, 5.3 million of damage. It seems like a no-brainer. We were just going to get all this to begin with. I mean, we have some very capable members, in the administration that certainly can negotiate. We have multiple attorneys already on staff on our behalf. I mean, and I know there's some specialty things that go along with it. But the mitigation, that's all written into our policy. Any layperson can read that. I mean, it's not that hard to read. I was surprised because I went back and read my policy for Ida myself. It's really not that hard to read an insurance policy. It's very clear. It's very much black and white. You can really see what is owed to you already, and for the most part, they don't really dispute it. And if they are not negotiating in good faith, we can go, and you guys had that gentleman from the insurance commissioner's office come and speak with us. If they're not negotiating in good faith, they will advocate and help you for free. But I mean, to me, it seems like this was a no-brainer. We were just going to get the policy limits from the get-go. So I don't know why we had to bring on anybody in the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alessandro.
Thank you for your questions. I'd like to weigh in on both of those. I know that Ms. Deborah said she'd like to address it also. In a perfect world, you come up with a number and you think your house is damaged, whether that's a contractor or adjuster, anybody to do it, and you present that to the insurance company. In the 20 years that I've been handling hurricane claims, close to 20 years now, that has happened about 0 times where you hand it over to the insurance company and say, well, that's it? Oh, here's your number. Why didn't you say so? It's just, in a perfect world, that's what happens. These numbers, that's why I was very cautious to put them out there to begin with. These numbers are what we have projected are the damages proposed. That doesn't mean they're going to pay it. They don't want to pay it. Let me be very clear with that. What we get paid on, any amounts that have been tendered to the city already, we don't collect any of that. We collect a percentage which is set by the Attorney General of Louisiana, sets a contingency fee for all lawyers that do work for parishes and cities. We've done it across the state. It's 25%. I will tell you this, and your incoming councilman, Mr. Lahack, can confirm this. Part of what an attorney can bring to the table is this. If they are found to have been in bad faith for dragging their feet and not paying the city of Kenner timely, again, these are details that we're developing, they may have to also pay an amount for penalties and attorney fees. That all goes into the negotiation. Again, if you don't have a lawsuit filed, then that discussion of penalties and attorney fees that they have to pay on top of repairs, that doesn't even come in a conversation. So it's our hope It's our hope and plan that as we go forward in litigation, if we can prove they're in bad faith, they may also pay a percentage for penalties and attorney fees, which can help offset that amount I mentioned earlier, which is the Attorney General set rate for law firms that represent the cities. Now, as far as why we were hired, the specific reason, Deborah, did you want to answer that as?
Well, I could listen to your answer. You want me to try first? Let me take a
No,
stab at that.
ma'am, you go first.
Okay. So, Ms. Stacy, first off, it's super complicated, this insurance policy. It's not like my house policy or yours. We went to the market in London. We have a number, I don't know, 10, 12, something like that, separate insurers. So when you go to the market, people will say, well, I'll take 2% of your risk and I'll take 10% of your risk. And every single one of those insurers has to agree. That's why it took so long to get the first tender. The first tender was $10 million and it doesn't cover mitigation. So as of this moment, there are $0 offered for property damage, not a penny. One of the reasons you bring a lawyer on, particularly as you get close to prescription, is so that they can come in, file suit, and put some pressure on the insurer. I can tell you that since we hired these two gentlemen, we've had more action out of the insurer than we did in all the times combined up to that point. So he's answered the fee portion. The reason to bring them in is because they will get us more money faster.
Can I finish? Because I do want to answer the question. I understand your concern. I do, believe me, because we represent homeowners and businesses as well, not just the city of Kenner, okay? I will tell you, now's about the time. We're being retained by other businesses, hotel owners, sophisticated corporations that did their best to handle that claim. They had a number developed too, and they handed it to their insurance company, and they didn't get anywhere with it. They just didn't. So in those situations, similarly, we get involved if it's a big hotel. Not only do we try getting the money they initially projected, but we enhance those estimates by experts we have, because we've been doing this for almost 20 years. We make that number even bigger. And then we engage the insurance companies who know us, and this man over here, because they've been dealing with us in the courtroom for 20 years. So they know now, if we're involved, there's a high likelihood, well, there's no question, we will take this case to trial if we have to, because we've done it before. That gives us more negotiating power than others. So there's a few reasons there. I mean, we'll have the conversation. Does that answer some of your question?
It kind of also, just so you know, each night, I think Mr. Albandia's office gets it, each night, our firm gets a list of every lawsuit filed in the state. I can tell you about the last month, like Rico said, this is kind of the time where businesses, homeowners are filing lawsuits. There's at least 20 hurricane lawsuits filed in almost each parish, because now is a time where the insurance company hasn't paid and you have to take action. So the decision to hire attorneys at this point is really par for the course. That's what everybody's doing, because you're coming up to the 1 year mark. It's time to take action.
So you filed a lawsuit already?
The state
But not for Ida. If we file a lawsuit, does your percentage go up at that point? It stays the same no matter what?
No matter what.
Okay, and so you said it's 25%? So the $10 million that we have, when these guys asked you guys last night, you said we had $10 million of coverage. Y'all are only representing us for buildings A, B, and C, not the entire city?
60 buildings, all the buildings. But the $10 million that was tendered already, that's passed already. We're not taking.
No, I'm talking about how much coverage do we have? Y'all said last night we had $10 million.
$100 million.
$100 million. Okay.
I cannot say that we're going to make a demand for $100 million in coverage, and we're still finalizing the damages. But we don't know the answer today.
So there's still potentially $90 million on the table.
I'm careful because I don't want insurance companies listening in and saying, oh, Mr. Albandia said there was only this amount of damages.
No, I'm
There
saying,
is $90 million of insurance left to be paid.
right.
So I'm not saying that the city of Kenner has $90 million worth of damages, because that's the value of all the buildings that we insure. You understand? So
Yeah.
that would mean all 60 buildings were total losses.
Right.
So that's not what I'm saying. Be careful, that's
No,
not what I'm saying.
you didn't say, right. Okay, I understand.
You should understand the reality.
Yes. So we have $10 million we've already received that you guys are not getting a percentage of. But there's $90 million still on the table of coverage that if we were to get all of that, we would be paying the city $22 million of our money that we need, obviously, to repair these buildings, $22 million that I think we should be able to get some of that on our own. At least 75% of that. I think we probably do need to hire attorneys, but we can definitely get some money on our own. If the insurance company's not going to agree to any of that, they are not negotiating in good faith, we don't have to file a lawsuit because of that today. As long as the prescription, probably a year, doesn't run out, we can do that at any point. We cannot afford to pay if we got the policy limits, which it seems like we need because everything is more than the limits. We can't afford to pay that much. I'm so glad y'all are having this today, and I know it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but this is insane. I think we need these guys, but I don't think we need them now. Mr. Calderera, I mean, we all know his reputation, what he's built, how many years he's been in the business. He gave us the reports of what the damage is. We know what it is. You know, the first company that you said that was first brought in, what was the name of that company? Janssen. When? Does anybody know when Janssen was brought on?
Within about a week of the storm, maybe 2.
A week of the storm?
Yes, ma'am.
We got an insurance, we got an attorney?
No, ma'am. That's
firm?
they're a public adjusting.
Public adjusters,
Yes,
within a
ma'am.
week.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was Dominic Impastato that his company that we initially hired?
He was the initial attorney that we hired.
And
but
then how come he's not our attorney now?
because he withdrew.
Why did he withdraw?
I think that would be his story to tell online.
Okay. So within a week of the storm, we didn't even try, and we just, thank you.
Yes, sir. Approach and say what district you live in.
I do not live in Kenner. I'm the Kenner Firefighter Association Vice President, and I had a question in regards to the money you mentioned for City Hall. Does that have anything, or does it include the Kenner Firefighter Station that's connected to it as an adjoining wall to City Hall?
I got that. I'm calling this one in the outfield, mine. So thank you. First off, thanks for coming. We appreciate that. The initial assessment was that if the building A is rebuilt, the one that's attached, then there was not damage to your side of the building because that wall is a separate wall. You can literally take down all of A and leave that wall up. However, if they go through what's called 428 program, or if they have to tear it down and rebuild it from the ground, then that will affect that station. So obviously you guys are going to be involved at the point at which that decision is made. For the council has heard about the 428 process, and fire department definitely would need to be involved in that because the 428 process is, okay, look, we have money from the insurance company, we have money from FEMA, let's build something better. I think that would be a fabulous opportunity for you guys to build something better. I mean, you have functional but not perfect, so it would be nice to be able to upgrade that as well. So fire department will be involved in this as we move forward.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Donald Tillman, I do not live in the city of Kenner. However, you mentioned the 428 program. Is there any way that we could get a copy of the 428 program?
I can send you the information if you would give me an email address, or if you leave it on the sign-in sheet over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Then I'll be
I'll
happy to
gladly-
email that information to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
If you could share that with us as well.
Of course. I think I'm sending them what we sent at one of our earlier meetings, but I'll double check. Whatever I send them, I'll send you anyway.
Okay, perfect. If it's in what we already have, then that's fine.
I think it's not in the Dropbox. I think what it's in is an earlier email when we were having that initial discussion. But let me follow up. Let's refresh all of our recollection anyway. Also, if I could clarify the early retention. Early on, we retained Mr. Impastato, Councilman Impastato, as the attorney on Building C, the Zeta claim, and on the tornado in AP Clay. He was not retained to represent us on IDA claims yet. He brought in a public adjuster and introduced the public adjuster to us, and the public adjuster is the one who helped us put our claims together. So the attorney was not hired. No attorney was hired to represent us on IDA. An attorney was hired to represent us on Zeta. Recently, last month, we hired an attorney to also represent us on IDA because Zeta was way ahead of IDA. We were approaching, the period of time when we have received not $1 tendered on Building C at all because of the Zeta claim. And we received $350,000 on AP Clay, and I can't remember, if Mark knows what the estimated damage was, a couple of million. So necessary to have an attorney on that one at that time, but the IDA attorney was not hired 2 days later. We used the public adjuster, and he did an excellent job, but now's the time to bring in the legal folks who do this.
Okay, I have a question about this, specifically about the $10 million. So the $10 million that we got, you said that we didn't get anything specifically on the Zeta claim for Building C. So what did the 10 million for any specific buildings, or that was just a general overall? Like, so that could have been used for Building C,
right,
for some repairs.
The 10 million was basically just an advance. And because the mitigation cost on all the buildings combined exceeded 10 million, I say it's for mitigation. Basically, it's an advance. It has not been allocated. Hopefully, when we get more funds, they will allocate it one way or the other. But literally, we spent the available funds that we had on mitigation on all the buildings that were damaged. So when I say it's 10 million for mitigation, it's a 10 million advance to be used on anything, but we had to spend how much on mitigation?
So I think there's about 14 million total in mitigation so far. So the 10 million just basically helped us replenish our cash that we spent to pay the mitigation company initially. So nothing's been allocated to anything as of now. So that's where they came in. Once we actually had true invoices for mitigation, they should have also paid us that. So the 10 million went towards, basically, like Deborah said, just an advance. We acknowledge you at least have $10 million worth of damages. We'll give you that advance as we work through the claims. So nothing has been allocated yet.
Okay, and so all of that mitigation, those mitigation dollars are separate and completely unrelated to any costs that were spent on any other Hurricane Ida expenses like trash pickup or
Correct.
debris pickup.
Yeah,
all
this
of that
is
stuff.
just
Okay.
the vendors that, the contractors that performed the mitigation duties, and they separate it by building. So
Okay.
we know how much is for each
And
location.
who are those vendors?
So we have Southern Cat was the main vendor, and then CRC performed some mitigation in Rivertown.
Can we get those information, the totals for those?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It might take me a little while to pull it together because it's individually billed. I have all the invoices I can send you, but I can work on compiling like one spreadsheet with everything.
Yeah, if just a total, I mean,
Okay.
really, ideally a total on what is so far and what was spent, year to date, or not.
Okay, yeah, if you just want to know year to date what I spent, what was
Yeah.
spent on that, I can pull that.
Okay, perfect.
So that's on the IDA expenses
Yes.
that you give.
Yes, I've already given that, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the numbers that we have, and when you look into the charts that Calderaro provided, on Building A, including the fire station, there's 14,724 square feet, and the total cost to demolish and rebuild is $4,039,000. It's $274 a square foot. We have 50 on the 3 buildings, including the fire station. We have 51,000 square feet, and I know that we've had 74,000 thrown out there as square foot needed to bring other people from other spots in. Is that correct, Deborah?
The number that I was given for A, B, and C was 58,000, and then the 72,000 that we came up with included moving the Recreation Administration, because Recreation Administration got obviously the mall itself was also significantly destroyed. So we have them in a gymnasium right now. It would be nice to get them in with us. So
Okay.
it's a rough estimate.
So when you're looking at the square foot prices on A, B, and C for rebuild, which includes demolition and I guess preparing the site, you're looking at an average of $321 a square foot. And if we went and built 60,000 square feet, we're going to be about $9 million behind. When you take the insured amounts, if we got 100%, would FEMA come in and reimburse that $9 million?
Hypothetically, theoretically, you want it? Okay. FEMA will reimburse if you identify that that is the least expensive, most efficient route. FEMA will reimburse more if you go in and say, look, we're building out back more resilient. What we want to do, instead of building back the buildings we have the way they are, upgraded to code, what we want to create is basically a building that will withstand a Category 5, a building that will have, modern conveniences and energy efficiencies and all of that. Then FEMA will considers eligible cost above and beyond that actual cost. But what FEMA looks at is what you had, what it costs to rebuild it, reasonable, legitimate cost. We can't go in and say $600 a square foot. And then the difference between the insurance and that amount. And that's the FEMA claim. The FEMA claim is the difference between what your insurance gives you and what you need to build back to where you are. The only difference in terms of eligible cost is they encourage you to look at the 428 program. So like we were talking to the firemen, if we did a 428 program, it would include upgrading the fire station. When we did the 72,000, Councilman, I'm remembering, we also included the fire administration, because the fire administration building is very, it's not at policy limits, but in terms of the damage associated with it, it is very close to needing to be rebuilt itself. So if you consolidated fire administration, recreation administration, and all of the city functions that were in all three of those buildings, I think that's where the 72,000 comes from.
How much is the policy limits or on the fire administration?
I'll pull that for you. I didn't bring anything but A, B, and C today.
Because it's looking like we have $10.3 million if these three buildings are demolished, okay? And if we build 60,000 square feet at the average of what was in the report, it's $321 a square foot. That's $19,260,000 minus the 10.3. It leaves us 8.96.
To build it back exactly the way it is.
Well, no, because, if my numbers are 51,000, yours are 58, but if you build 60,000 square feet, then we're 8.9 million off. And so if we have to determine if that 74,000 is the real number or not.
I think that is part of your 428 analysis as well.
Okay.
Because the contractor is really creating a planning document for you, and they go and they come back and say, okay, here's what an efficient use of space would be. Recognize we have three buildings over there that all have common area. Two of them have elevator lobbies. A lot of them, we have two different sets of stairwells taking up square footage. So when you combine those three buildings, I would anticipate, and again, I'm not an architect, but I would anticipate that the efficiencies of scale would mean that you could create a smaller building that accommodates the very same functions in a more efficient way. So that's what the 428 contractor, have we scored that yet, or is that, okay. Shortly, we will have a 428 contractor who would come back to you and say, if you presented a 428 plan, we've done a space assessment, you have this many departments, they need this much space based upon this calculation, and as a consequence, we'll present to you, council, this proposal for a 428. That is what, if you approved it, would then go to FEMA with the information. Here's what we'd like to build back. This is why it's more resilient. This is why FEMA doesn't want to keep paying us, right? They would like us to build something that never has a FEMA claim again. So here's how much our insurance will give us for this. Here's how much more we need from FEMA. Will you approve it? You don't start driving nails on that and then hope you get reimbursed. That's a go up front and say, guys, we'd like to do a 428 instead of a rebuild. You guys good with this? And of course, there's a lot of things associated with this. Right now, one of the things that Mr. Albendian noted was the numbers we're talking about don't include bringing them up to code. There was some discussion about whether the old jail slash credit union might be below the crown of the road. And if that's the case, it would have to be elevated. And if you start trying to elevate part of that building, and anyway, so there's some cost associated with the rebuild that we're not, you know, Mr. Calderon gave us a very rough, quick estimate just so we had a global vision. But as they get into the very specific details, you're going to have more numbers. The insurance numbers aren't going to change, but the FEMA numbers are going to respond to whatever it's going to cost us. FEMA wants you to say it's going to cost X to rebuild it exactly the way it is. It's going to cost Y to renovate it, and it's going to cost Z to do a 428. It's going, I think, based upon what we've heard from everyone, it's going to be cheaper to demolish and rebuild than it is to renovate. It's just going to be cheaper because of the code compliance issues that you have there. So anyway, that's the approach that, and I think you're going at it exactly right. How much insurance do we have? We have to start with that, so we'll know how much we're asking FEMA to contribute.
No, I'm fine right now, because we went through this already when we built that new police building, so I understand the concept.
Oh, yes.
Ronnie Schwartz, District 2 elect. Ms. Deborah, I'm just looking on here for the fire station.
Yes, sir.
Okay, $624,000 roughly.
What page are you looking at, Mr. Ron?
It's
not
A,
numbered.
Building 8 cost.
Okay, let me see. I'll catch up with you. Go ahead. Okay.
Okay, you got that, 624,000 roughly. That is to rebuild the fire station, correct?
That's Mr. Caldero's estimate to rebuild the fire station in 3,021 square feet.
Okay,
I think if you tore it down and rebuilt it, you might want to modify it a little bit.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
because your bays probably need to be bigger to accommodate some larger equipment.
because I'm thinking, and roughly, that new station 38, after paying for the land and everything else, is $3 million that we got from the state and all. So $1.5 million to build 38, the new station 38. And that's with some improvements to the crossover at Duke and Loyola and things like that. But to go into it, these figures are $400,000 less to build one station than the other station.
Okay.
And also with this, I don't know, again, with the lawyers and everything like that, the concrete to hold these fire trucks had to be at least a minimum of 6 inches.
Correct.
So when you start putting the parking lot for the offices and things like that, where the fire truck has to come in and go into the fire station, you're talking 6 inches of concrete. And that's considerable, considering that concrete right now is like, you know, $125 a yard. So that's a lot. I'm just looking at the discrepancies between Station 38.
I believe Station 38 is substantially larger, but this was really an estimate at that point of building back what you had. I would not encourage building back what you have, Mr. Ronnie. I would encourage building back something really cool.
You know,
so
because-
with you on the council, I think you're going to make sure that they build back something really cool. So.
Right, you're still going to house 2 apparatuses and 4 men. No matter Station 38, Station 35, it's the same.
And this is a conversation for you to have with the chief as well, but some opportunity might be had to actually look at your service area, right?
Right.
And determine, do we need another apparatus and another platoon at that location? In other words, do we need to expand to be able to provide coverage in different? So that's a coverage issue, a PIAL issue, a response time issue. So
Right.
I think take this opportunity. This is just if we just build back what we
Right,
have. I don't know that
I
what we
understand.
have is what you want, but take this opportunity, I think, for everyone to try to figure out what we do want, because now's the time to do it.
Yeah, because you got the front line pumper, and you're going to have a secondary, a backup pumper.
Yes,
so
sir.
you will have 2 trucks at this station.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have to make sure that we build it back. Right now, 1 apparatus from door to get into Station 35, you have to back in or jockey the trucks to get in. And then when you do, you significantly limit the apparatus room, getting into things like that.
Sometimes hit the
And
fence
also-
around the generator too. Yeah.
And also, the station is still leaking, okay? We still have water leak, roof leaks in the apparatus room,
If
and
that's
also in
leaking,
the captain's room.
I'm sorry, if that's leaking, we need to report that to Southern Cap. Mark, can you document, can you take this report for that station and get Southern Cap to come back out and fix that? Thank you.
Good. Got it taken care of?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
You gotta stay on it, man. I'm leaving. You're in charge, okay? You got this? Okay.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
I want to add to that, Ronnie, is that the concept of rebuilding the fire station at that same location is not fixed in stone. We have land right down the road that the fire department owns for a new station, that we can build a station there from new to build a brand new whatever there, and not have it at that location where we could use that space for the additional city resources.
Okay, so we do have areas that's right, they didn't have to necessarily be on the corner.
Right.
It could be in that general area. We're not talking blocks here, we're just talking a yard, 100 yards or something like that, that would be.
For what?
For Station 35.
Well,
Are you talking Station 35 or Station 38?
I guess it's 35. I don't know.
But it is blocks, but also when you look at the coverage area, it actually
Yes.
improves your response time. So one of the, and this is a longer conversation with the chief, one of the discussions was to put the replacement station at the lot, which is closer into veterans and gives better response to certain areas. But you could also put the rescue. You know, you could either as
Well, that's at Station 38.
I know, but the rescue could be relocated. In other
Yeah,
words,
that's
right, so if you move rescue to where you have the city hall and then you move the city hall over to this new location, it's my understanding that you're going to improve both response time and coverage for purposes of the IA already. I mean, we're at a one now, but we can always do
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, Station 35, that's at City Hall.
Correct. That one is the one that could be moved to another location to increase response time and increase coverage. And the one that's on Williams, that is the rescue unit, which, you know, that's
Station
one-
379.
That's the one we back into the side of the building all the time. That one is not the perfect fire station, but we appreciate the guys who tolerate that. But if we could put that where we have 35 now, that would also give us a really good response time for the use of that. But again, this is a conversation. Please have this with the chief, because I'm cutting corners in terms of my description more than I intend, and he's got some really good ideas about that. I know he could use your advice.
Right, where is the new Station 35, the new property that y'all talking about?
What do you think?
25th Street in Illinois.
Illinois.
25th in Illinois? Oh, okay, that's back there in the neighborhood,
Yes.
by the house. Sure.
So good to be.
Yeah,
And if needed, there's additional space just a block from there if we wanted more space that we don't own, but we could probably go do land swap negotiation.
yeah, that's a big area right there. I don't think we would need any more
The
than...
earlier day discussion, as Foshe was saying, was 35, when the money was available, could be rebuilt there to give better coverage in that umbrella versus where it's at. So that's why they bought that land. It's sitting there. We've had people want to buy it from us, and we've told them, no, it's our land, we're not selling it. So it has to hopefully get used for a fire station.
Yeah, they're 379. And I can think of years ago, we wanted to build that station there, and GP School System owned that particular parcel that was right there. And we said we wanted to build there, and they wanted an astronomical amount of money for us to go there at one time.
But the school owned from 25th to West Napoleon, from Iowa to Illinois. So they were trying to sell that whole parcel off. They did
Right.
eventually sell it off to blocks of residential, but the fire department got in there and carved out a piece, and they did buy it at I presume a reasonable price, but it doesn't matter now, we own it.
Right, we got it. Okay, well, I just was wondering where the new Station 35 was going, if it wasn't going to be there. Okay, because I wasn't quite sure where it was going.
It's part of the work.
Just a big
If we could
scope.
use that square footage and bring in other city departments to keep them all in one facility.
Right.
And then move the fire station to this other land where it probably would be even better located, there's a target.
Any thought about moving headquarters over there with Station 35?
There have been a number of discussions about where you could move fire headquarters, whether you would combine it with the station, you combine it with administration, you combine it with the EOC. So that's also just a constant discussion.
It's all dynamic, it all keeps
It's
moving
all
around.
And now you're here, so your opinion's going to matter. Just talk to the chief and see where we're going with that. We'd really like to hear what you have to say.
Okay, great, thank you.
Something just leaked on me. Southern Cat needs to come and check this building.
It's raining on me anyway. Bird, get out of here, bird. Let that bird in here.
Okay, if we can have one more comment, and then I'd like to move on to discuss the current location of City Hall details, if you have one.
Donald Tillman, Second Vice President of Local Firefighters Association. We're talking about the new Station 35. Is there a plan, I guess, in place to moving from us to, you talked about 25th in Illinois. Is there a plan in place for the in-between? Because I know right now we talked about the demolishment of Station 38. You know, guys have been in this station in a trailer for 38 for a while now. Is there a plan in place for a timeline of the new station versus, you know, where we're going to be at now versus 25th in Illinois? Also, we're talking about Station 35 and leaking and getting Southern Cat out. I can tell you last night I slept in 38. I was on duty last night, and with the weather last night, I could have sworn that the lightning was coming through the station, but I went to the bathroom at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was water coming in through the bathroom, through the bathroom roof. So if you want to get Southern Cat out there and call me, I can definitely have that. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Ms. Foshi?
If I may, there is no plan to move. What we're talking about is potential alternatives or options. Ms. Tillman, I'm sorry. There is no plan to move. Right now, what we're talking about is potential opportunities, locations, that sort of. There is no plan. Right now, what we're doing is we're investigating all the opportunities. So if it became a plan, then that's the point at which we also would need to look at the interim.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. I think I might have said Station 38. I meant to say Station 35. Thank you.
I wish y'all give street addresses because I can't keep up with these numbers of stations.
Just so you know that, hello. Just so you know, our guys were out there today looking at the roof. We had our contractor go and do some inspecting, but that goes back to what Mr. Rico was saying about how we're now starting to find more problems than what we initially saw right after the storm. It's down the road. I mean, we know it needs to be replaced, and we're working towards that. I've got estimates on that already. We're waiting for to get clearance from once FEMA finishes their inspections and insurance, and I think we'll be ready to roll on replacing it. If they find out what they're going to do, keep it or tear it down. But we had addressed it and looked at it, just to let y'all know.
Thank you, Mr. Glorioso. Okay, so let's move on to discuss the current location of City Hall details. So this is where I really want to find out, where are the current departments, what are we doing, what are the current costs of occupying Macy's buildings and all of the buildings that are actually currently occupied, and what all of the departments, where the current departments are functioning. So if you guys can touch a little on that, and then...
and I may need Adam to talk about which departments are actually in the Macy's, but to roll back on August 29th when we realized, or August 30th, when we realized that the City Hall complex had been not only part of the hurricane, but B in particular had been hit by tornado. So the roof had been ripped completely off of B, and the roof had been sort of jacked up and dropped on Building A. We immediately figured out we're not going to be able to occupy here for a little while. We initially started doing services from the parking lot at the Macy's. Then we commandeered, under the emergency powers, the Macy's, but a very small part. So the very first use of the Macy's was simply that front vestibule area. It was about 3,000 square feet, and that was where code was doing permits. Y'all probably remember the signs that said roofs don't require permits and fences don't require permits. It was during that period of time. Over that period of time, over the next 6 months, we ramped up from the initial 3,000 square feet to taking over the majority of, I won't say majority, more than half of the first floor, plus the storage that we had used at Pontchartrain Center went to the third floor, and we are using the security cages on the second floor. So for the first 6 months, we negotiated, and when I say we, David Sherman negotiated a sliding scale fee to pay under emergency powers based on the square footages we were occupying during different periods of time, multiplied by the fair market value. You have in your Dropbox the appraisal for Macy's. The appraisal, once you take into account, everything we're using or everything we have access to, is about $58 a square foot. Well, overall, if you take the whole thing together, it's 58. I'm sorry, 58,000 a month. I'm using the wrong numbers here. So 58,000 a month. The landlord has proposed a lease, which I provided to the council previously, of 60,000, and will, for up to 18 months. At this point, we have paid the first 6 months on the sliding scale negotiated, and we are making unconditional tenders on a monthly basis of the fair market value. We are not paying 60,000. We are tendering 53. Sorry, tell me again. So it's basically $54,000. And until the council decides whether they were going to stay there or they're going to leave, it's my recommendation that we continue just to do the unconditional tenders. But the landlord at this point is saying, okay, guys, if you're staying, I'd like a lease, and that's fair. So part of the takeaway here is really to figure out if the council has the council has the appetite and desire to stay there, or has an alternative plan, at which point we need to tell the landlord that, okay, we're vacating at a certain point. One of the challenges is, and I think you guys have some knowledge about this, the fire marshal. We initially came in, we're there on an emergency basis, but we kind of overstayed our welcome in terms of an emergency basis. We needed to go and talk to them about, okay, we're going to be here a little longer. So we talked to the fire marshal, they came through, they did an assessment. The foam, those fabulous styrofoam walls, Mark has done an amazing job. The fabulous styrofoam walls that are coated with the fire retardant paint are not UL rated. So to be able to get a fire marshal approval for that for a permanent solution, they would have to be sent off to get UL rating. It was very expensive. So the fire marshal said, get your architect to come in and make a proposal on how you will over time improve this. So the architect came in and made a proposal of over time we would replace the styrofoam walls with basically not cubicles, what do they call them, Mark? Architectural walls. They're basically portable walls. There are things that you can move around and you take with you when you leave. So with the idea that we would be spreading out eventually, we would have architectural walls eventually, that did we have to sheetrock the council chambers? There was one thing we were going to have to sheetrock, I can't remember. But anyway, so if we are moving forward, as long as we are moving forward, then the fire marshal is fine with us staying there. The most recent release, or that's their version of approval, they released on April 22, but we have to continue to show forward movement. So part of the challenge is if the council is not interested in staying in that location, the forward movement's going to be expensive. Because to do the forward movement, we're going to have to fix the escalator and we're going to have to fix the elevator because we have to spread out to the second floor. So I am looking for some guidance about the plan, because if it is not our intention or your intention to stay past July 1st, I feel we're sort of morally, ethically bound to reach back out to the fire marshal and say, look, this was the original plan to slowly fix it during the temporary while we're fixing our 1801. But if there's another plan that we're going to go to some other location or trailers or something else, then we need to put them on notice. I can't guarantee the consequence, but I think probably what they'll say is if you do not plan to stay here and continually improve, you're just going to be here for another 2 months. We're going to want you to take down the foam walls. Poor Mark, look at Mark's face. So we're going to take down the foam walls. You can still be in there, you just can't have the foam walls up, and we have to have a fire watch. Nikki, I'm calling on you to be the fire watch. You're the best fire watch we have. And we'd have to have a fire watch. That would get you over the hump for the next 2 months so that you could then go to your next location. So basically, at this point, I think, I'm looking to, and it's so awkward, right? We have 2 months now, we have a new administration, they may want to do something totally different. So one of the issues to look at, I think, because we just gave you A, B, and C in your Dropbox, the suggestion that we have other city buildings that we could go to, I probably need to drop those damage reports in your Dropbox as well, if you have specific locations you want to go to, because as Mr. Alvendia noted, we have 60 buildings damaged. Now, they're slowly coming back online. The gyms are coming back faster than the other things. We're trying not to take over gyms if we don't have to, because we'd like to have those for programming. Pontchartrain Center was our most damaged, just because it's so huge. A little damage to the Pontchartrain Center goes a real long way. So our most costly damage is to the Pontchartrain Center, but it is basically restored to a functional level. The trim is not what you would like. We still have, temporary sheetrock and that sort of thing. Where, there's an opportunity to take over a portion of the Pontchartrain Center, and the cost associated with that is about $250,000 of lost revenue, but it's also not going to accommodate everything that you have right now in the Macy's. So with that, if I could get Adam just to come up quickly and talk about which departments are at the Macy's. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Architectural walls, how much is that going to cost?
It would cost $1 million probably for that space, but it's going to cost $1 million for any space you go to.
Escalator fix?
Escalator, Mark?
It's like 65,000. Actually, not sorry, 200 something thousand.
For the escalator. What's the elevator? 200 and something for the combination. So the architectural walls is something that we can do over time, but the escalator and elevator is something we need to do now, because that's the sort of good faith next step for the fire marshal. So whether you go to trailers, you go to gymnasiums, you go to the Pontchartrain Center, the architectural walls are what the fire marshal is going to approve for you to be able to use, unless you just have wide open space. So the good thing I think about these architectural walls, and that's to purchase them. You could always lease them, but to purchase them, you take them with you. You can take them wherever you want to go. So, but that's a long. I don't want to say long term. That's not. We don't have to do that right now, as long as we're moving in the right direction and we're moving upstairs. But we do have to fix the escalator and the elevator right now.
How much time do we have on the fire marshal on these walls?
On the architectural wall, well, first thing we have to do is show that we have fixed the elevator and escalator, because part of the representation from the architect is we understand that this needs to spread out. So what we will do is we will go upstairs, we will create architectural walls. We can't get upstairs now, basically, from a safety and ADA perspective. You have to walk up the stairs to get upstairs. So how much time do we have? You probably would not have to buy architectural walls before the new administration comes in, but I do think you're going to have to fix the escalator and the elevator. So I think your out of pocket right now that you might lose if you change is in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. Up to this point, we've spent about $500 on the building total. So it'd be another $200 to $250. But if you're only going to be there for 2 months, it doesn't seem like a good idea. On the other hand, if you're going to be there a long time, or 18 months, and then at this point, this is still, I'm going to ask Liz on this, this is still, it's still 90-10? Okay. But it's 90-10 wherever they go. If it's approved by FEMA, if you don't keep this as a temporary location, you go to another temporary location, that temporary location is approved by FEMA, these same architectural walls are approved 90-10 there. It's not just a 90-10 if you do it at Macy's. So I think you have enough time to wait on the walls. I don't know that you have enough time to wait on the escalator and elevator. And at this point, all we can do is reach out to the fire marshal and say, look, the decision, they're still making the decision. They haven't made the decision yet. Can we continue? We are walking up and down the stairs to get to 2 and 3 at this point, which is fine, good exercise, but
What are you guys doing in 2 and 3 right now?
2 has the security cages, and 3 has all the furniture that we took out of the Pontchartrain Center. I don't know if you ever saw the 2 or 3 rooms that we had all the furniture that we salvaged from the 3 damaged buildings ended up at the Pontchartrain Center. And then now it got taken to the 3rd floor because the Pontchartrain Center is back up and running and we couldn't take over their meeting rooms that much longer.
So we're using 100% of floor 1 right now?
We are using, well, nobody else could use floor 1 right now because of our usage. We do not have something physically going on. I don't have anybody here from Recreation, do I? The back area of Recreation is the only one on the other side of the escalator right now, but they are looking at creating, the ceilings aren't tall enough for gymnastics, right? You can't like go around the bar without hitting something, but it is for, you can do tumbling and a variety of other things in there. So that's they were trying to get some of that program back open to be able to give the gym back to regular gym functions. So we were able to negotiate based on your usages, square footage for the first 6 months. At this point, the owners of the mall are not interested. We have taken over enough space they can't rent it to anybody else. So while we aren't necessarily using it as in we're sitting there, we have taken functional control of the building because nobody else could come in at this point and access it.
Just to clarify, okay, so you said cages on floor 2?
There's security cages, like when, they had, you do.
Okay. So, yeah, part of the security cages is clearly we have a lot of documents in A and B had to get out. So they're secure documents, a lot of documents.
Okay. So storage, so secure storage.
Yeah, basically. It's just cages so people, the documents are secure.
Okay, so you have secure storage, you have furniture. If the elevators are in disrepair and the escalators aren't, how did you get that stuff there?
There's a freight elevator.
So the freight elevator is in working condition? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can't take people up there. Like they sent the items up there on the freight elevator and unloaded it.
And so they had to do all the furniture in the freight elevator and then they had to walk up the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. So the elevators in Macy's don't work, and the elevators in Building B and all of the other buildings don't work either. So we have no functional elevators anywhere in the city.
And we have one in D.
Okay. Okay, so you guys don't have any other questions. I want to specifically ask. So
Councilwoman,
yes.
there's also elevators at the Pontchartrain Center.
Oh, right, of course. And I guess this will be for Adam. So recreation, where is that currently located?
So the Recreation Administration is in Woodward Gym, which is the gym by Station 379 on Williams, close to where the rallies used to be.
Okay, and in that gym, if I recall, they actually have a dedicated area for admin. They have offices and stuff like that.
Upstairs.
Upstairs, right. And that also is how currently Woodward is housing gymnastics still?
Gymnastics and martial arts.
Martial arts, okay.
And then there's a portion of the Macy's that is also used for Recreation Administration on the movie theater side of the building towards the back.
So who's housed there in Macy's?
Charles, Lane, and Ryan are usually the 2 people that are there. And then they have all of their administrative meetings there, but they're there daily.
And forgive me, because I don't know who Ryan is.
Ryan is the assistant director.
The assistant director, okay. Okay. So what other admin, so they're the director and the assistant director is in Macy's. So what admin is in Woodward?
All of Recreation Administration.
Okay, so like all of the
office.
All of the office space. So everything that was in the Old Navy formerly.
Correct.
Mall
Correct.
is now all of those office spaces.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So why are Charles and Ryan not in Woodward?
I think they travel back and forth. I'm probably misstating that they're sitting there all the time. I mean, they do go to both locations. So.
Okay. I mean, the managers should be with.
Yeah, they definitely are. But we have daily meetings at the Macy's that they're a part of at 9 o'clock in the morning on most mornings, and they're there for those. And then so they have a space there to work out of for those kind of things while they're waiting in between meetings with administration.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So and code, is all of code in the Macy's building?
Yes,
Is all of the council offices are in the Macy's building, correct? Except for Councilman Carroll?
correct.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And then all of the mayor's office is in the Macy's building?
Some of the mayor's office is also at the trailers in the Public Works yard near the Central Vehicle Maintenance Building. I think that's, what is that, Liz, 1803 23rd Street? Unit D. I can't believe I remember the 18.
Okay, so beyond those that I've mentioned, who else is in Macy's?
So I'm working from my memory. I don't have a cheat sheet in front of me, so I might mention some of the ones that you said already. But we have the council offices, council chambers, which double up for clerk of court.
Okay, so are all of the clerk of court's operations out of the Macy's building?
Yes. Then you have code enforcement in the front, right when you walk in. You'll know where that is. The legal department,
Okay.
public information officer, civil service, IT.
But doesn't IT have some other location? Like, where are all the servers? Are they in the
Servers are still in C on 4.
Okay.
And then we have additional backups at D as well. The main servers that you're talking about are still C on 4.
Okay. Okay, so the people work in
Macy's, correct. Yeah, the building is, it's safe for electronics, not for people.
Okay.
So PIO, civil service, IT, planning department. Cultural liaison and assistant to the mayor, that's Mary Sharon Howland and Raphael Sadi.
But they're with the mayor, are they?
They're in their own separate, office, directly across from planning.
Okay.
And then the mayor's office, and they have that back space where the mayor's office is, close to the meeting room in the back.
Okay.
Directly opposite of where the council offices are, on the opposite side of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all that's in Macy's?
That is the Macy's.
Okay, so...
Fire and police, civil services there too, in with
Okay.
the civil service department.
Okay, and then, so that's what's in Macy's. Let's hop over to any current operations in Building C. Is anything still functionally going on in Building C?
The only thing I know for city operations that's in C are the servers. I don't think there's any departments working out of C.
Okay.
For city departments.
Okay. Are there, is the clerk or the justice of the peace still Building C?
I think so.
Do you know? Okay, yes.
Credit union too.
And the credit union, okay. And justice of the peace, are they on first floor?
First floor on the park side.
Okay. And that's all that is functionally in Building C?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, so, I mean, this is not just for Adam, this is for anyone. Sure. Building B, is anything going on in Building B?
No. B is vacated.
And then, so there's no furniture, nothing no furniture, like all the furniture had been moved to Macy's building?
There may still be materials inside of the building. There's no people inside of the building.
Okay.
The damaged furniture is still.
Okay, so the damage furniture. But so we haven't thrown that out yet? Okay. But the roof has been mitigated, so there's no current leaks or anything like that you're aware of? Okay. And then Building A?
Nothing's going on in building.
Nothing's open in there?
Nothing, other than the
But
attached
the fire
department.
station is, okay. Do you have any questions?
Is anyone else working out of the trailers other than the mayor?
There's Public Works.
But do they normally work, have they been normally, like where was Public Works
So
prior to that?
there's-
Aren't they in the trailers already?
Public Works Field Services is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Kenny's divisions.
So field services, so where was field services before the storm?
It's sort of a mixture. They had people in the yard.
The same trip, okay, so there's no change there, okay. And then building D, which is over there, everyone is still functionally in that area.
That's finance on the first floor.
But there was no.
We took in additional
You did
departments, so like HR.
Okay, so
HR,
Risk,
internal audit,
wastewater's
wastewater's in the
there.
cafeteria, counter median, and then you have EOC in there as well.
Which is there before.
EOC.
We have one member from Code that is sharing some space with finance just for the occupational license renewal, but she'll be returning back to Macy's soon. Yeah.
And the council office for District 1 where is he located? There's no location for him.
His car.
Okay, so.
Councilwoman, there is an office built out at Macy's for him right now.
Okay.
There is an office built out at Macy's for him. He asked for an alternative location. At this point, we're trying to find any location that has a bathroom. So. But right now, he does have space and a mailbox and all that if he wants to go. I know he doesn't want to go there. We're trying to find him something. But.
Yes, I actually was unaware that we had mailboxes, so my mail for 5 months is probably still sitting in there. So. Hopefully no one mailed me anything important. Okay, so, do you think?
No, I don't know.
Councilman, if I could, one thing, and it seems like this is 100 years ago, but before the storm, the mayor's office had moved to the trailer or was in the process of moving to the trailer. We still had things going on in the mayor's office, but we're moving out because the servers were being removed from building C to the second floor of B because of damages from Zeta to building C. After we got so damaged in Ida, the conclusion was, okay, well, it's bad, but it's not nearly as bad as B or A. So I don't know what the plan is at this point. Long term, those servers can't stay there. I mean, they had to be moved because of damage before.
Right. It depends on I guess what the decision is to do with the buildings. We had floated the idea out of using a data center, which I still think would be the best idea to use. But you know, if you build a big brand new building, please include a server room. If you renovate those buildings or whatever you decide to do, that would need to be addressed then. I would definitely recommend in any event of whatever you do at that site, I wouldn't put the servers on the top floor again, so they're not susceptible to roof leaks. I would move them to the most interior portion of the building that you can. But a data center would be far better than any of that because a lot of the connectivity issues that we have, even the smaller storms, not like Zeta, but some of those in-between sort of, I call them practice storms that we do, we lose connectivity via email, phones, things like that all run for the internet for a long time. Y'all are all familiar with this because you're all victims of it just like we are. And having those things off-site in a data center in Baton Rouge or someplace like that would allow us potentially to remain connected in the aftermath of storms and ice storms and other events like that. So.
Okay, thank you. I think, let's see if I have anything else. So I think, and I don't know if you answered this question, I'm not sure if I wrote it down. How much have we paid so far? I know maybe the previous council meeting, you said that we were going to pay for an invoice for Livestein in the Macy's building. How much so far have we paid to stay? Yes, for everything. I'm specifically saying for rent. Yes, for rent.
So we've paid the 6 months, like Deborah said, the 187, and then we paid one more month of 54.
And the 54, okay, so
it's 53,972.88.
Okay, and that's what we currently will pay going forward. Correct. Okay. so if we continue to, in 6 months, 18 months, however much, we will get the 53, that's negotiated, or we will have to renegotiate that,
But we haven't negotiated, so it's based on
the preliminary.
yes, so based on the square footage and the fair market value rate, that is that.
But we can negotiate, maybe potentially a better rate if we do something long term.
Yeah, we could, we just can't, pay more than what the fair market is.
Right, okay.
And the 53 you're talking about, 53.9, that's what the landlord wants.
No, that's based on the,
Fair market
Fair-
value.
yes.
I meant, he wants rent. So
Yes,
based
yes.
on fair market value, that's what he's
yeah,
getting.
he wants more than that,
Right,
but that's all
right.
we're tendering.
But we're paying it, but it's still subject to be reimbursed on the 90/10.
Correct, yes, so we would be responsible for our 10% match.
Okay, so we paid the 187, and so a portion of that 187 is reimbursable.
Correct.
Okay. But obviously, we haven't paid anything by FEMA because we're still working through that.
Yeah, we're still working the claims out with them, so we haven't received anything from FEMA yet.
Okay, and then, but anything that, so any expenses that we did to build out or fix, like if we fix the elevator and the escalators, would that be potentially covered by FEMA?
Yes,
Okay. And then the architectural walls?
yes, so anything with that build out, so basically like Deborah had said, and I know we've talked about it before, but reasonable costs. So obviously we have prices, there's no really anywhere else to go, and then we've gotten prices on trailers. So even with that, we're still under the trailer amount. So as long as we don't, dump more money than what the trailers are, we wouldn't jeopardize FEMA funding. So it's a reasonable cost. It's the best plan that we have so far. Now, obviously, if something else comes along that seems like a better deal, we would seek, FEMA's approval, and then we can switch our temporary location to that.
Okay.
So, but it still wouldn't jeopardize anything. Anything that was approved during this time would still be eligible for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
The two payments, the 187.53, where does that get us to?
With those payments, and I gave y'all a report last night and realized we didn't even mention it in the mayor's comments, but that's what that was. So that was a total of about $590,000 is everything we've spent at Macy's so far, including the rent.
Okay, what I'm asking is,
Oh, it gets us through March. Through March. Mhm. Yeah, so we'll send April out next week, and then we're kind of behind until we get the lease signed. So we're just tendering to be in good faith. We're sending them the rent, but we don't have a lease signed right now.
Okay. Okay, I guess my only other question is in terms of how, obviously with the, there's going to be a transition in government coming up, right, in July, and right now, we're not going to really get any information about solid insurance costs at the end of, until at least May, at the end of May, and that's only, so there's a month in between there, kind of, which is not very long. So what is the urgency of making a decision? Because I really think that, how have you guys engaged the four in terms of transition? I know you guys have been working with Mr. Quigley and the mayor-elect. So to me, I think it's really important to engage them, because if they're the ultimate ones that are going to be maintaining the buildings going forward in less than 2 months, right? So, and I want their input, and I want to be able to work to them from the get-go. So what engagement have they had? And what is, and is there an urgency to decide something before July 1?
So they have the same documents you have. I think they probably got them a week or two sooner, and Mr. Quigley has toured the buildings. So they have that level of knowledge in terms of what's going on. The attorneys have met with the mayor-elect and explained the process. Our only urgency right now, to be honest with you, is with respect to the fire marshal. If what we need to tell him, and we may need to tell him, look, we're slowing it down for a couple of months. We've got to slow it down because we don't know what they're going to do going forward. it could be, okay, fine, I'm going to give you 60 days, or it could be, okay, fine, take down your styrofoam walls. So I think that's the only risk. And again, I think probably what we would want to do is have the architect reach out to the fire marshal and say, there is this possibility. What will the consequence be? And then we can just report back to you. I don't know if we'd be able to, like, we may have the consequence before we have another chance to have another committee meeting. So it may be necessary just to reach out to the council individually or all of you separately. But I think that's the urgency. The urgency is not long-term. Long-term, right now, you are going to have all the options in the world in terms of 428. You're going to know soon enough what insurance you're going to have. You're going to know soon enough what FEMA's going to be willing to pay, and have some fabulous opportunities, I think, to make a mark on the city going forward. But our urgency right now is a temporary location, and also we are paying the landlord. But at this point, you know, he has the right to like get kind of fussy if we don't ever sign a lease. So right now we're paying them. They're complaining, I want a contract by next Thursday, and we are responding, guys. We are going to a committee meeting. That's true, right? We're going to a committee meeting. We're going to meet with the council. We're going to present, and they're like, okay, so that means the council's going to vote on it next week. No, the council is not voting on it next week. The week after that. Well, I'm going to. So that's the pressure is that the landlord is being. You know, we commandeered it. We had the right to commandeer it. But now we're to the point where we probably do, if we want to stay there, we probably do need to sign a lease with them. He's not out, from a fair market value perspective, they're not out a dime. From a opportunity perspective, it's not like people are knocking the doors down, and we have met with multiple parties who have come through wanting to look at the mall and the Macy's. And what we have told the landlords, if you get a buyer who wants to bring somebody in here, we'll figure it out. Right? Because right now, the reason FEMA's approving us at that location is because it's available at that price. It becomes unavailable because someone else is going to come in. That's great for the city. We would love the tax resources that would come from that. At that point, we're coming back to you and saying, okay, we're actually looking at trailers at $2 million down to $200,000 a month. It's not our preference, but if that becomes the cheapest option, then we have to talk to FEMA. Right now, it is not the cheapest option. The cheapest option, available option right now, is the Macy's, but we are not going to prevent them from bringing commerce in. So we've had multiple meetings with multiple groups who are looking at the Macy's itself. So. Or not the overall mall, not just the Macy's.
Has the mayor-elect spoken with anyone, the landlord or the Macy's, at anyone at Macy's?
I don't know. I mean, they have all of the information. I know that last week or the week before, Felix asked for information about the mayor-elect and said he was going to reach out. But I haven't asked the mayor-elect. 2 weeks ago, I haven't reached out to him and said, did he ever call you? So, but you know, again, at this point, I think we're on solid ground in terms of we're paying them a fair market value. I think our biggest risk is not that as much as the fire marshal thinking we're slowing down, right? I think that's our bigger risk, but if you think it's a good idea, we'll certainly ask the landlord to reach out to the mayor-elect if that has not occurred. I kind of got the impression it had occurred because he knew that that would help him until July 1st. I think that was kind of the impression he got, but anyway. At this point, really, the council's the one that has to sign the lease, if there's going to be a lease. And just like when we were, you know, before the election, we are deferring to the council about where to go.
What? Okay, so why, I mean, you guys are in charge of the building, so why would the council sign the lease?
Per the charter. Oh, you have to approve. Oh, I said something. Like, we can't lease without you.
Oh, right.
You guys are the ones that have to say yes, lease, or don't lease.
Oh, right, okay.
But once you approve it, yes, it would be the mayor.
Right, you said sign, so that's why I was really
My apologies. Yeah, I
confused.
meant you have to approve the lease.
Okay.
Yes, as we're trying to, I guess, get close to wrapping up this, and just to kind of put it in perspective too, that the committee's per se direction was to look at the 1801 Williams site to determine some direction. Do we lean toward rebuilding what's there or tear down and build new? The data is coming in to help point in that direction, even though I guess we're not going to be there yet, because we got to report back to the whole council. But my thought process, because I know you had mentioned this at one of the meetings about this proverbial 18-month for FEMA and the timeline to get things moving. I just know from, my experience when I was given the project for the police department to build their new building, and I had to go through the first step, which was the space needs analysis study, that I brought in people who went around to all of my divisions and sat down with them and, hey, what do you need? What would you like to have? And gather that data to then be able to give to the architect to start a conceptual design to then get to a cost factor through that. So I'm just trying to, understand that if we kind of move forward soon to decide that we think building a new building is the better cost-wise, we need to get started on that space needs analysis study so that all of these city departments that we want to house can put in that data as to what they have now, what do they think they're going to need, what would they like to have, all those kind of components that then can be crunched for the architects to start giving a conceptual design to even get to a cost of what that building will be. So I just don't want to not let that just kind of float away, that we still have to get that moving.
That would be part of the 428 consultant's responsibility. There will be a team put together, including a space analyst, who will say, these are the things that you're using now, these are the things that other people would like. They will meet with the fire department as well, and then come back with a proposal or multiple options to the council and to the public for public hearing if you choose, for that purpose.
That's what I'm saying. The space needs analysis gives you a conceptual idea. Architects can come up with one design and we go, no, we don't like that, we want to tweak it. You change it to fit, it may be the cost is too high, we want to come down. So that's it. That was the path that I took to get that new police complex started in 1998, had it finished by 2000, and then moved in. So I just know I see that as a path for the city to start moving in that direction. To cut down that time for that 18 months, that we just don't come up and go, okay, 18 months, let's start the process.
You are correct. We need to determine what size offices, departments, and space, and storage, and I know council offices, I'll take half the size of it before.
I want twice as much as I have.
I think the council assistant should have more space than the council, that's for sure.
Yes, so, I think that's a very valid point. And I also think that in terms of, departments and the direction going forward, a lot of these things are, are still up in the air in some respects, because I know, obviously there's going to be a transition of government and there's always changes, right? So in terms of that, I think we want to look at that and we want to get started, but we definitely want engagement from all of the council members, as well as, I think we really need to, to me, it's important to find out how much, what's the base level of insurance that we're actually getting, because if we have at least a base level at the end of May, at the end of May, that we can start with, then that's going to help make our decision, because I wouldn't want to prematurely decide, honestly, to, okay, we're definitely going to build. We definitely want to go in that direction until we really know what those full damage reports are. So.
And I just wanted to add, we didn't really talk about it, but FEMA has come out to buildings A, B, and C. They did their assessment, and definitely for buildings A and B, we're over the 50% loss, which is required to do a rebuild with FEMA. So we're already to that point.
Do we have a report on that?
I do.
Okay.
I think it's been given, but if not, yes, it should Dropbox. But also, we contracted with an engineer that'll come out and actually give us detailed cost estimates. It'll include bringing it up to code, all that, so that we can present to FEMA, this is the cost for a new building, and then what we use is, this is what our insurance gave. They'll cover the deductible on the building, FEMA covers that. So whatever they, build the project for, will get reduced by insurance proceeds. They'll reimburse us our deductible, and then they would fund the remainder of the
And
project.
is that with the 428 program, or is that outside of that?
That's just that's the
Just
normal
normal
way it
projects,
works. With the 428, you can come in with a grander plan, but that is a hard number. So you have to be very accurate to present it to FEMA, because it's a one-shot deal. You build in everything you want, any type of upgrades, and once they sign off, that is the number they're paying for. So with a normal PA, you can go back and you can version the project out to add different things. So it's beneficial to use the 428. We have an expert in 428 that the state has given us access to make sure that we are following the steps. So hopefully, we'll have everything built into that.
Okay, so in terms of the 428 program, obviously I'm not very familiar with it, but how many, I know Deborah said that it hasn't been used very many times.
It hasn't been used in
Has it
the
been
United
used in
States.
Louisiana?
I'm not sure. I can check. It hasn't been used in the United States as much as like Puerto Rico, but when it was hurricanes in New York, they had. That's when it really came in. So the person that actually worked for FEMA with the 428 that handled it in New York actually works for our state rep that is helping us through the project. So he's very familiar. He is the one who implemented it with FEMA, and he's going to assist us with that. So, and he works for Deloitte now. So.
And Puerto Rico has the greatest experience at this, and Javier was working in Puerto Rico for FEMA at the time. So I think we've got 428 surrounded at this point.
Yeah.
Who is that?
They're with Deloitte, but GOSEP sent it. I can send you the contact information. They actually requested us to have a meeting where they can come and present something to the council. I'm just not sure if that should be to the entire council at a council meeting or more along this line. So we can work it out and figure out.
For everyone, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of information, so but we can
maybe
provide
we can have a
you-
specific
yes.
meeting for that. So,
Yeah, exactly. So once we get it, we didn't want to overstep. So once we get to the process where it's looking like we're going to go towards 428, once y'all decide that, we can definitely bring him in and he can give a little more information for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members of the public, do you have any additional, gals and guys, do you have any additional questions specifically on any of the items that have been discussed? Yes. Just say your name again for the record. Yes.
Thank you. Have we paid any real estate agents any fees for any of these transactions?
For the lease, no ma'am. We have retained a real estate agent to provide the fair market assessment, or the, what's it called?
Fair market value?
No, it's the market assessment to make sure that.
Market analysis.
The market analysis, that's correct. Yes, so we have a real estate agent who we retained to do the market analysis. We have not yet been billed by her.
So that's just to tell us, what would the rent normally be for Macy's if?
No, we had a appraiser do that. What she did is look at the market, available market. She did it right at the beginning of September, right after the hurricane occurred, to determine if there were any alternatives available in the market to Macy's. And then she did, and the alternative to Macy's was Burlington. And the question was, if Burlington doesn't come back, do we go and do that? But Burlington did come back. And then after the 6 months, we went back and said, okay, now that we're further in, more things are open, can you go back and once again run the market analysis for us to determine whether there's any other space available, cheaper space? That is required by FEMA, because if there's cheaper a space out there, then they're not going to approve Macy's. But both of those occasions, it was, Macy's was the only place besides Burlington, and Macy's the first time. The second time, Macy's was the only place besides the airport. And there was no market assessment out there of anything cheaper than what the Macy's was. And I reached out to the airport after that last council meeting, and you know, they'd be happy to talk to us if we're interested, but I think there's some logistics issues associated with the airport that might be more troublesome than the Macy's. So if anyone's interested in pursuing the option at the airport, let me know, and we will get some more information for you.
Okay, thank you. So can you, I'm sorry, but could you tell me again, what is the current, the real estate agent, what is that person doing? What is their?
She gave us a market assessment so that we could tell FEMA that the Macy's is the least expensive option available on the market. So when we couldn't go and get the highest available market, if there was other space available for us that was less expensive, Macy's would not, FEMA would not pay for that.
No, I'm sorry, I got that point. I got that part.
I don't think she's doing anything currently, right? Is she doing any?
She's done it
additional work?
twice. She did it in September, and then she did it 6 months later.
Right, and so as of right now, is there any other reason, any other thing we're going to be using an agent for in this process that you see?
It will depend on how long the decision is to stay in the Macy's. If they stay in the Macy's, I would probably suggest or think that in another 6 months that assessment needs to be done again. If the council decides to move to another location, that assessment may need to occur at that time. Basically, it's going to depend on what FEMA needs to be able to determine if the value is the most efficient, least expensive option available.
Okay. So do you know, as far as Macy's, that's a separate owner than the rest of the mall?
No, ma'am.
So the person who owns the mall also owns the Macy's?
Yes, ma'am.
It's the same person? What about Target and
No,
Dillard's?
separate. Those are separate.
But Macy's and the mall itself is the
Yes, ma'am.
same? Okay. I know there was, this is going to be all over the place, it's just random things. I know at one point there was an issue with the taxes for the mall.
Yes, ma'am.
Have those taxes all been paid?
The parish sold the property at tax sale, so all taxes that were due and owing at that time are waived, basically. So at the time of redemption, I do not believe they're going to have to pay the taxes back, but to the extent that we have the opportunity to recover, we will attempt. But right now, it is, I don't, they haven't redeemed that, have they? No. So right now, the beneficial mall owner is actually Jefferson Parish.
Deborah, I don't think we can hear you. If you could.
I am so sorry. This is better.
I can hear you, but I'm there.
Yeah, no, I'm talking to Steve.
It's like, okay, so you're saying the entire mall minus Dillard's and Target was bought by Jefferson Parish at the tax sale?
At the tax sale, there were no buyers, so it defaulted to Jefferson Parish.
So Jefferson Parish owns it, and so then is it the normal thing where the owners of the mall have the 3-year redemption
Correct.
period? And if
That's
they
correct.
don't come and pay, then
That's correct.
Jefferson Parish just owns it?
That's correct.
When did it revert to the Jefferson Parish?
August of 20, I think. Either 20 or 21.
So there's still a while.
It's either a year or 2 years. And
Okay.
I'm thinking Mickey may know. He's moving close to the mic.
Okay. So when we're paying rent, are we paying the rent to Jefferson Parish?
No, ma'am, we're paying it to Cohan because they are the actual title owners for 3 years, so we pay it to them.
To the people who actually own it?
Or the title, yes, ma'am, title owners, but because the time has not lapsed. At the end of 3 years, if they have not redeemed it, then we would pay to the parish. That's correct.
So we're going to get our taxes?
I don't know if we are or not because the sale did not include the Kenner taxes. It only included Jefferson Parish taxes.
So what's happening with the Kenner portion of the
They
taxes?
may be waived. We'll have to wait and see what happens at the time of redemption.
So
if
we
you
didn't do
auction a property and you do not put all of the taxes in when you do the auction, then any outstanding taxes may be waived. That's something I'm going to have to leave to the legal department, which they will assess at the time that the redemption occurs. We anticipate that they're going to redeem it, right? I can't imagine they're going to let them all go after 3 years. But at that time, that's when the legal department at that time will need to look and see if our taxes have been waived.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, this is more questions. Okay, so Jefferson Parish kind of called in their portion of the taxes.
That's correct.
But Kenner did not do the same thing?
We did not know they were auctioning the property. It was already auctioned at the time that we found out. So had we heard about it, we would have said, please include our taxes.
Can we not do our own?
It's too late at this point.
Why is it too late?
I'm starting to get into the legal portion of this. First off, we can't do it now because it's no longer in the Cohen's name, it's in the name of the Jefferson Parish. At the time of the redemption, if they redeem, and they only redeem Jefferson Parish taxes, and they reserve rights for us to proceed against Kenner taxes, then that's a possibility. But again, the legal department at the time, when the 3 years runs and they redeem it, that's who really needs to answer that question. I don't want to get too far into my legal opinion since I'm not the lawyer here. A lawyer, not the lawyer.
So Kenner, I'm sorry, it's just hard for me to follow. So Jefferson Parish called in their portion, but for whatever reason, Kenner didn't call in their portion.
When the auction occurs, when I was at Jefferson Parish, when I was the parish attorney in Jefferson Parish, when we did that, we made sure we called everyone's taxes. So when we auctioned a piece of property for Jefferson Parish, we checked to see if there were any other taxes, and we included them. For reasons I cannot explain, this property got auctioned without including the Kenner property taxes. I don't know why, and I don't know if there's a reservation so that at the time of the redemption, they can recover. I do not know.
So whose responsibility, ultimately whose responsibility was it to make sure that if there was an auction happening that we were included on it? Was it Jefferson Parish's responsibility or was it ours?
Hi, Ms. Stacy. At this time, I think, I think we should move away from that topic and not discuss it at this time.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just feel like it's relevant. I just feel like it's relevant to the decision making of what we're going to do if this is potentially a permanent move. That this is like a big deal.
They do owe taxes, but to the extent and in terms of the dates and all that stuff, we're not prepared at this time to answer those questions. But more importantly, had I known, we would have had those, years and stuff. But we'll discuss it another time. It might be an executive session. But they do owe taxes. And
Stacey, it will not be a permanent move to me.
Okay. I'm just thinking if we didn't call in the taxes and they owe it, why aren't we just, instead of giving them the rent money, why aren't we just taking it off the taxes they owe us?
And that could be part of the negotiations in terms of the lease that we could talk about. And it has been part of some negotiations with the landlord, but not to the extent that we can talk about it here.
Okay.
So what happens
Hold
if the mall...
Excuse me, 1 second. Okay, I am corrected by the only not lawyer at the table. This was a tax sale, not an auction. As a consequence, we still have the ability to recover not all the taxes, because some of them were from 1992, so they were already expired by the time we got here. But there are last 3 years that, according to Liz, we will be able to take to tax sale ourselves.
Yeah, so there's a difference between us and Jefferson Parish. Jefferson Parish takes things to tax sale right immediately the next year. You don't pay the taxes, we take you to tax sale. The city gives their residents and business owners 3 years to pay. And so on the third year, if you haven't paid, we will be taking you to tax sale. They have not paid. They are on the list to bring to tax sale this year. We cannot bring back, like Deborah said, the 1992 was so old it prescribed. So we may not be able to ever recover those funds, but current taxes that are owed, we will be seeking a tax lien against them if they don't pay by time our tax sale comes up in September.
So there is no lien in place right now?
There's a tax lien Jefferson Parish has.
Well, what about Kenner?
Kenner doesn't have a lien yet because their taxes aren't up for a lien yet. They will be in September. So if they don't pay the taxes by September, then we will be taking it to tax sale. If no one places a lien on it, it would be adjudicated to the city, and the city would have a lien against it.
So they only owe us, they're only owe, other than the 1992 taxes, which we all know
the last
is too old.
And
right now,
I'm sorry to interrupt, I just want you to know, in the discussions with the owner regarding the lease and pricing, all that it's part of the negotiation in terms of, it's been raised, they do owe taxes, but we can't get into the extent of that conversation with you, especially because there's a lease that has not been signed, and the city at that time might go back to the table and say, hey, you owe us this. You owe us this, let's negotiate. So I'm just saying, Right now, in an open forum is not the time for the city to
Okay.
discuss it, but it is something that we've discussed and we're aware of as well.
Okay.
And they are aware, we're aware too.
Okay, so, okay, I think you can probably answer this, I hope. So can you just clarify, it's not the 1992 taxes, other than those ones that have already prescribed, the tax, how many years behind are they on the Kenner taxes as of right now?
So we will, in September of '22, we will be taking the 2019 taxes to tax sale, properties to tax sale, and they are on the list.
So they owe us 19, 20, 21.
I would have to verify the 21 because they can pick and choose, but typically they would want to pay the oldest taxes to get off of.
Do you know, like, approximately how much is that per year?
I don't want to speculate, and I can't
Oh,
connect right
that's okay.
now.
I thought you might.
I can get it to you.
Okay, so I guess the point I'm trying to get at, well, and I'm glad y'all have already addressed that, is why are we paying them when they owe us money? We should just be deducting it from what they owe us. But, so you're saying we actually don't, they owe us the money, but we don't have anything like recorded with the court or anything, a lien that says that they have to pay us this money? Yeah. The tax?
Well, everyone has to pay your taxes. You have to pay your taxes, but there's a process we go through where we actually take the property to tax sale, and that's where a lien is put against the property because you didn't pay your taxes.
So if they sold them all, let's say they sold them all today, the owner sold them all today.
Yes, all taxes would have to be paid. So they would do a tax research, and all prior taxes should be paid. That's usually why you pay a title company to do the research before you make the sale.
So that's what I want to make sure. So if they're, just because we didn't call it in or all this other stuff.
It's just the older year that we're not sure of. But anything current, we have the 3 years to bring it to tax sale. So as long as we bring it to tax sale in September, then we wouldn't have any issues.
Okay. So
even if they sell, we would receive those taxes.
Okay, so here's my most important, I want them to hear this too. Here's my most important question. I heard today that the mall was sold either yesterday or today.
Well, if that's true, we'll be getting our taxes paid.
Does that interfere with us staying at the mall?
We haven't heard anything, so you're our first reporter about that.
Are you serious?
And we are meeting next week with a potential buyer.
It was either under contract or sold either yesterday or today.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. And we may have just, spent a lot of time talking about our options, and we need to have a different conversation.
But can we stay, can we stay under the same terms even if the building changes hands? Can
It
we
depends.
still
We'd
say
have-
how we're?
We're going to have to negotiate with the new owner if there's a new owner.
You'd have to negotiate with the new client.
Okay, so the trailers that we have, when you talk about the trailers,
The trailers
Which
that the mayor's
trailers?
office is in, the 7 wide at the...
when y'all are talking about the trailers, are those the trailers that we bought that time that you had brought to us? It was this great
From
deal.
Black
These beautiful trailers that we got.
Yes.
Is that the same
Yes,
trailers?
ma'am.
That's awesome. Okay. Okay. I was
You
just
should come
curious
see them.
about
They're
that.
actually pretty nice. They're pretty nice. Come see
So that worked out good for us.
$15,000.
The only ones that didn't get hit by the hurricane.
Should have bought more of those. Okay, and my last question, well, I have one more question and then one more comment. So is it possible for y'all to do a study and to let us know, or you might already know, I would like to know how many employees are working at a Macy's? Like, is it 100, is it 1,000? How many employees are working at a Macy's right now? How much square footage are we currently using? I mean, because we're not using the whole Macy's. Like, how many square feet is the first floor of Macy's? Do we know, approximately? Okay. Because I do have some potential, I'm a real estate agent, which I think everybody knows, and I do have some potential options, that I'm thinking of that I know about, that I'd like to maybe bring to y'all. but I need to know, just because we're occupying the whole first floor right now, do we absolutely have to do that? Because, there are some other spaces that would be perfect. But are there enough places in the buildings right now where we can move some of the people that are in Macy's maybe to the Pontchartrain Center, but not take up the whole thing? Like, can we scatter some people around, and then what is the net amount that we absolutely have to have, whether it's even downsizing for some of the people? If they're currently using 100 square feet per person, or 200, can we downsize it to 100? Like, I want to know what is the minimum that we actually have to use if we had another building that already had walls and a fire alarm system and everything else.
So I guess we would have to get that.
Right, if we found another one, we will definitely assess that as part of the market survey, for sure.
Okay.
If you're aware of other locations that we could go to, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I just want to know what the size is that we're looking at, so. So, my last thing is just a comment. Thank y'all for having this meeting. I have no idea who called it, but whoever it is, thank you. And I really think that, like Councilwoman McKinney was saying, I really think that this is a decision that 100%, the mayor-elect needs to be the person who makes the majority of these decisions. The council does get to decide. You guys get to decide where you have your council meetings, but we're down to a matter of days, a few weeks, and I think that the mayor-elect really needs to be the one to be heavily involved in this, along with the council, to decide where we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alessandro. Is there any other comments? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion.